Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. I am very excited to finally say that I have finished listening to the audiobook for Hunter. So this is another video in my how to make an audiobook series. So last video we talked about I think the waiting period. Basically, when you get your audio files from your narrator, it's your job to go through each of them and listen to them for mistakes. And then this is your only chance to review the audiobook and have the narrator make any changes that you want. So I'm going to give you all the tips and tricks for this based on my experiences and the mistakes that I've made and how I've learned. So first of all, the easiest thing to do is to go through your book physically, or at least visually, as well as listening, because just listening, I went through my book Assassin just listening, and you don't catch the same mistakes that you do compared to when I actually listened to the whole thing following along with the paperback. So you can use your ebook document, you can use your paperback document on your computer. What I like to do is I like to go through the paperback at the same time, and that's what I did with all of my books. So as I went through Hunter, I listened to it and I followed along with the paperback, so that way if something the narrator said didn't match the paperback, I could make a note. So how do you make notes for your narrator? The best thing to do is to pull up a Word document, and what I personally did is that if I heard a mistake, I would write down the timestamp. So say it was in chapter 1, 5 minutes and 27 seconds. I'd write that down, and then I would write down, you said this, but it's supposed to say this. And then I would write down both sentences, what the narrator said, and then what they're supposed to say. So that's what I did, and that's the method that worked for me. The main tip, this is the most important thing you need to know when hiring a narrator and doing an audiobook. Please edit your book first. Don't even think about doing an audiobook until you have the final version of your book that you're happy with. Once you have an audiobook, especially if you are doing an exclusive contract with ACX, you'll have a 7-year contract where you can't break it. Generally speaking, you can't for any purpose. And so if you end up making the narration, or even if you pay for it and then there are things that you want to change in your book, then your ebook or your paperback is not going to match your audiobook, and that is so unprofessional. Your ebook, your paperback, and your audiobook should match and read the exact same way. So even if there's like a simple word or typo that you want to change or address, you need to do that before you even think about doing an audiobook. And the reason why I know this is because I made a mistake. I did not know this, and so here, as I'm listening to Hunter, I know a lot of more editing methods now because I've been editing professionally with my clients. I'm going through Rogue which is another Valiant book, with my narrator, and she's teaching me some new methods and other things that I didn't know how to do with my own stuff very well. And as I'm doing that, I'm seeing those things, and I want to make changes in Hunter, and yet I'm going through the audiobook. The narrator has already narrated the book. So it made the process so much more complicated for me, and it's not fair to the narrator. So what I ended up having to do is this kind of the same method I did for the narrator's mistakes, where I marked down the timestamp, and then I said, I'm changing this sentence to, and then I would write down what I changed it. But this is going to put a lot of extra work on the narrator because he's already narrated this book. So that means that for every edit that I make, he has to re-record that and then re-edit the recording. And it's really not fair to him, and it's a huge mistake on my part, and I feel absolutely terrible. So please make sure that your book is the final version that you want it to be. Edit it so thoroughly, and then once you do your narration, whether you're paying for it outright, whether you're exclusive to ACX and doing it like me, just make sure that it's the final version that you're happy with, and you won't be able to edit it anymore unless you don't care that your ebook and paperback does not match your audiobook. So, as I said, just listen to listen to the audio, go through it, mark down any mistakes that the narrator makes, mark down any instance where there's background noise where there's loud things, where mark down any instance where they're not characterizing something properly, like if the character is supposed to be scared and they don't sound very scared, or they sound too casual, or any instance where they're reading as a narrator and it doesn't sound in the right mood or tone that you want for a scene. Like maybe your scene is supposed to be suspenseful and they're not sounding suspenseful enough. Go ahead and mark those too, and be polite when you do this, but just mark down any sort of changes that you want the narrator to make in the book. And that includes characterization. If there's a character voice that they're doing wrong for maybe like a side character somewhere, and you're like, I kind of want this character to sound a little bit more like this is when you need to make that note to the narrator so they can make the fix. This is your last chance to make any sort of fixes to your book. So with that, let's look at mine. Mine is very, very long because, as I said, I made a huge mistake and did not edit Hunter thoroughly first with the new techniques that I've learned. So what I did was I would write down chapter 1 and then the timestamps, and like I said, I've already told you that. So I made this in a document. So what happens at this point is you go to ACX, you pull up your projects, you go to the projects that are in production, and then you're going to pull up your project that is in production that you're doing this for, obviously. And you do not want to click approve audiobook unless there were no mistakes. I highly doubt there were no mistakes. Even the best narrator will have mistakes and errors here and there. The narrator that I did was actually approved by Audible, one of the professionals. I don't know how they do the criteria for that, and even he had mistakes. So what you're going to do is, if there's no mistakes, approve audiobook, but there's probably going to be some mistakes and changes that you want them to make. So if you want them to make any changes to your audiobook, you're going to request changes from producer. Now, the way that I've done it before, their message system is very, very minimal, and so I don't like the system that ACX has set up for this, because it makes it like if you have a lot of changes that were made or a lot of mistakes that were made, your document is very long and they have a character limit in the message system. So I'm going to go ahead and request changes from producer, and I'm going to let him know what's going on and tell him about my circumstances, and then apologize to him, and hopefully he'll be okay with this. And then what I like to do is offer, if you'd like for me to, I'm going to send the document here, but I could also send to an email if it doesn't send completely here, and just contact him and let him know about it and be honest with them about everything going on and communicate very clearly. Communication with your narrator is key in this process. So here we go. One of the methods that I'm going to do, on top of sending them a message, copying and pasting it in the message system, even if the whole thing doesn't copy and paste because of the character limit, I'm going to also create a Google Doc of these changes. I'm going to copy and paste everything, and then I'm just going to send him the link. So paste. Okay, so epilogue, Hunter, audiobook changes. And then I'm going to do share. That a way to make sure that your narrator that a way you just make sure that your narrator will get it. And you can also offer, hey, I can send this to you via email, offer whatever methods that they may need. And then I'm going to copy and paste it in there, which it looks like it's there, but I don't know. So yeah, so I sent the link and then send it to them. So real quick, I'm going to read through this just to make sure it sounds okay, and then I'll get back to the video. Okay, so as I said, when you have your changes listed out in a document, I would recommend doing it in a Google Doc and making sure that in your message to your narrator, you send them the link to the Google Doc. You could paste everything in there as well to the message, and then you're going to send it to the narrator. And the message has been sent, so now when you go to your projects, you go to in production, and the review audiobook disappeared. So now you wait for finished audio, which is the same process that happened before, only this time you're waiting for the final audio and you will not be able to make any more changes. So again, I want to emphasize how important it is to make sure that you list out any changes you want your narrator to make, because after this you will not be able to change it anymore. And if you're exclusive to ACX with them like I am, you will be locked in a 7-year contract with them and will not be able to change it at all. So please be sure that this is exactly what you want. So right now I am waiting for finished audio for Assassin and Hunter. That's the final audio for them. And then with Shifter, I'm waiting for the finished audio for the first round. But she and I are communicating via email, so it's a little different than Hunter and Assassin. And I still have to review Samurai. So again, please make sure that you edit your book thoroughly and don't make the same mistake I did, because you want to make the process as easy as possible for you and your narrator itself. And if you have to make any changes or edits to your book at all, it's going to make it more complicated for you and your narrator. So don't make the same mistake I did. And also, while you're waiting for them to get you your finished audio, please be patient with them. And if you can, please be a little bit more relaxed with your, if you can, try to be a little bit more relaxed with your deadline, so that it's not as much, so that you're not as strict and stuff with your narrator. And then when you're going through your audiobook, please try to do it in a timely manner. I took way too long and I felt bad for doing that to the narrators, because they are working hard on this. So while you're being patient with them and waiting on them, don't make them wait too long on you, and be patient, and don't make them wait too long for you to go through. I recommend, but you don't want to do too much at one time, because you can get really tiring to listen and stuff, because you're also listening for mistakes. So it's similar to editing, just with audio. And so what I would recommend is a chapter or 2 a day. That's kind of the method that worked really well for me. And also try to only do one at a time, because this is the process. You may, in the beginning, it seems really easy to just start making audiobooks. Like with me, I already have 4 books out, so I went ahead and did the first 4, not realizing that in the end, when all the narrators got back to me at the same time, I had 4 audiobooks to go through. And with me editing for my clients, I did not have time, so I did Assassin and Shifter first, and I had to put Hunter and Samurai on hold. So I hope that this video has helped you and that you've been enjoying this audiobook series, and there should be one more when I do the final part of this, but I've been following along with the process of going through Hunter's audiobook from start to finish, and I hope that breaking it down has really helped you guys know exactly how to make an audiobook, and more importantly, what mistakes to avoid and not to follow in my footsteps, so that you can avoid the mistakes that I made, and you can make the whole process easier for you and for your narrators that you hire and everything else. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you had, please give it a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday. Also, check out this video to watch the latest in this series about how to make an audiobook. It'll really help you with learning the entire process, and I break it down for you from start to finish. This particular one is about waiting and tips to wait and how you can deal with the whole process behind that.